order on Monday, March 2nd at 6 p.m. Is there anyone here who has any public comment? We will be discussing that as part of the agenda tonight. So seeing none, we'll go on. Approval of the minutes from the February 3rd meeting. I would entertain a motion to approve as written.
So moved.
Second.
Is there any discussion on that? Okay, thank you. We will, all in favor of approving as they are?
Aye.
Aye, thank you. Solar Group Buy Program. Pat, you you checked into this and you have some things to share with us, or?
Yes, yeah. So it's the Midwest Renewable Energy Association that is sponsoring group buys for cities and counties. And the idea behind a group buy program is that because of, kind of the economy of doing many of the jobs in one location, you do make it less costly for the installers, and therefore, depending on the number of people that enter the group buy, they can reimburse people some of the money that they paid. So my husband and I did a group buy that was sponsored by Sierra Club, and so you paid up front what you were going to pay for the solar system. But then once the group buy was over, they'd say we had this many people participate, therefore we can reimburse the people who bought the solar systems from us. And then we got a check, to reimburse part of our costs. So it makes it, if you do a group buy in an area, it makes it easier for homeowners, or cheaper for homeowners to install a system. So I did not talk to Peter Murphy, who is the person doing this for MREA, but I did exchange a couple emails for him, and he said it's too late to be doing this for 2020, okay, because they've already picked the places where they're going to be doing it, and there's an application process. But he said, you could apply this year to do this in 2021, and I've looked at the application that was open last fall, and he said even though it says 2020, you could use that same application. At this point, they don't have a deadline for the applications. Last year, the application to be in a 2020 program, the application deadline was October last fall. So but and so what they have up on their website now is the application for 2020. But he said you could use that same application procedure. In terms of the cost to the city, there's no upfront cost except for staff time. Doing the application, which isn't that lengthy to do the application. I printed out their guide to doing the application if somebody wanted to see it. You'd have to provide facilities or find facilities someplace in the city for doing meetings so that they can let people know about the group buy. And then also the city would be responsible for promoting it or advertising it. So there is some expenses in doing that, but there's no fee that you would pay to MREA for being part of the group buy. So there's no cost to the city, direct cost to the city, I guess, in that sense. MERA would, part of what they do, they have a whole process up for doing this, but they'd want to set up a community advisory group, and with them they'd work on getting a competitive bid for one installer to do all the places that are part of the group buy. There's part of what they provide to homeowners would be a site assessment, so they come to your house and they look at which way your roof faces and how big your roof area is, and they look at your electric bills to figure out what's a reasonably sized system, but they provide that without charging the homeowner anything, so it's a free site assessment to people who are interested. I guess the question is, do we want to pursue this for 2021? Do we want to ask somebody from MREA to come and talk to us about it? I'm assuming the city would have to approve this, right, before we applied for it, so I don't know what the process is for getting approval to pursue this. And realistically, probably by the time we decide if we want to do it, and then we get it to go through the city, decide if they want to approve it, and then we actually apply, it's going to take several months. So it's probably realistic from our point of view, if we're going to do this, to to shoot for a program in 2021.
Right, but to make a
know.
recommendation really soon so that it can get through the
Right,
municipal
right,
process.
Yeah, and I don't know how much information is needed for the city to make a decision. So I have the guide to the community application, what's involved in that. I have the printout from their website with a little more information about what they call it Grow Solar, Midwest Grow Solar Group Purchase Programs is what they call it. So I have that stuff printed out from their website. If, if
And
other
remind me, in addition to supporting residences that are within Oshkosh, we can also do this on municipal buildings?
I am not
With them or
sure
not?
about that. I don't know.
Okay, we'd have to ask them.
Yeah, we'd have to ask that, whether it also not just homeowners, but business owners and I don't remember seeing,
It says residents, businesses, farms, and other organizations, but it doesn't
Okay.
specifically mention.
okay,
A
and that's something
municipality.
I could email Peter. So would this apply to city buildings? And I don't know, like rental units, could somebody who owned an apartment do it for their renters? You know.
Somebody owns that building, I would think so.
Right, so would it apply to city buildings, and assuming it's okay for businesses
Multiple family homes.
and multiple family homes and stuff?
Um,
And I can email him that and find out.
Okay. Anybody have any other questions for Pat on this? It
I don't
seems,
know if,
I would say give that to Stephen or Brandon,
okay, do you want,
if they're willing to take it. I think that we probably do want to make a recommendation as a board that the city, so that it can start moving through the process. I don't think we had it noticed. Well, it's discussion, it's not action.
Yeah, it's not action, so.
So we can put it on for next month, or can we go ahead and
do you want me to
make
try
a
to
recommendation
get?
now?
Yeah, I mean, if we do make a recommendation, it wouldn't be something we could have said we formally voted on, I don't think, because
Okay.
it's not listed as action.
Okay, let's put it on next month for
We'll probably
action
wanna put it on
then.
for- Yeah,
Do
And now
you
that-
want,
to be safe.
Yeah.
do you want to hear from somebody from MREA to come and talk about it or not, or you think that's enough information?
If they're
In their
willing, I mean.
website?
It would
think
probably be
I don't
awesome.
think it's a bad idea.
I think that that would be a great idea if he's willing to come, and if he could come in April.
Okay, yeah, I can email him or somebody he works with, yeah. Peter
Mm-hmm.
Murphy, I think, is the manager of the program, but,
I'm thinking our next meeting's on April Fool's Day, isn't it? No, is that right? No, it's on the 7th.
Yeah, that's like a,
I can't quite picture April in my head. Okay, that would be better. April 7th would be good,
okay.
if
and
that's
it's
when it is.
6 o'clock meeting.
April 6th? Well, that's even better. Is that
April
Monday?
6th.
Let's do it.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
Okay, yeah, if you want to check and see if they're good for April 6th, that would be great. And then we can put it down for both presentation and action so that we could vote on it right away.
Okay.
To send a recommendation.
Okay, okay.
that'd be good.
All right. Any other questions on that? Nope. Moving on. Okay, the next thing on the agenda, I did add at the last minute. I apologize for that. I kind of remembered. What it is if you've had a chance to look at this letter at all, the place where the new park is, what's the new park called? Shoreland? No.
Lakeshore.
Lakeshore, thank you. I get Lakeshore and Shoreland mixed up. Okay. Lakeshore Park has its layout, and is that up there?
Mm-hmm.
Yes.
Get the
Okay.
map there.
So, the idea at issue is that right here, along here, which is Lakeshore Park, this section has a lot of trees here. Those are where we're referring to the trees. This section right across the street, which is technically Rainbow Park, has a couple of light poles here and here, and a few trees around, but they're here and here. The trees are more, they're not in the middle. And so neighbors who live in this house that you see right here are recommending that the Parks Board consider changing the area of the park that's going to have the the water pad and do we have a layout of the park itself? The layout for the park? That's specifically set right now for a water pad and a parking lot. And because of the fact that there are tall trees there that eagles are nesting in, and the fact that that particular part of the river is a place that stays open because of the confluence of all the water and stuff there, stays open, it seems like it would be a better place to leave those trees for the birds, because already the new building along the shore there has forced all the birds that used to hang out in the park into these few trees that are left. And I think there's, maybe a dozen trees altogether.
How are they explaining to get around, like, moving eagles? There's an actual eagle's nest there?
There is not an eagle's nest that I was able to see, and I'm pretty sure this time of year we would notice them. Along the path.
On the very end.
Yeah.
Yeah. On the very end tree.
If you want to come up to the microphone, please.
I'm just wondering
Just
how,
join
I'm
us
wondering
at
how
the
they're gonna be
table.
able to get around that, like the regulation, because, I mean, you can't even like, look at an eagle the wrong way.
It's
That's
actually,
not what we're asking.
actually, it's not a nesting area, it's a feeding area. And the reason it's a feeding area is because it is the confluence of both the Fox River, where the Fox and the Wolf come together, comes under the Beadmore Bridge, and at the end of Pinoqua Street, it's the narrowest spot. It's also one of the deepest spots, so it doesn't freeze. The current is always running through there. So those large trees at the end are feeding grounds. And the reason I sent the picture of the two eagles, we've seen as many as 5 in the tree at a time, because certain times of the year, January and February, when everything else is frozen over, they're all sitting there feeding. And if those trees go, it won't have anything accessible for them to get at that spot, is what will happen. And you can just see them all again. January and February is the best time to do it. Now, as Margie had mentioned, directly across from there is an area. Also, there's a new baseball diamond right on the corner of Rainbow, and it's a beautiful new diamond. If anybody's ever driven by, well, that's one of the best in the city. It's a nice one. But on the other side of there, the east side, is a flat paved area that's completely lighted. And that,
So
and
here's
that,
where we're talking, right, Rob?
Mhm.
And this is where the baseball diamond is.
Right, and now to the right of there, just slightly which would be to your right, is an area that was originally built, ice skating. It was originally an ice skating rink that they actually paved with heavy concrete, paved it, and put lights in, large lights that are built up there. I think there's 4 of them in there. Since that time, it's been a skateboarding park. Pickleball. We painted, got permission to do pickleball courts, so we spray painted on it. It's large enough that we had 8 pickleball courts on that slab. People got tired of it, and we stopped going to the park. The season wasn't right and everything like that. But that area is totally accessible right now, and it could be a perfect parking lot.
So what the suggestion is that in order to save the trees and the nesting area for the feeding area for the birds that have all ended up there because of all the other construction in the area, that the Parks Board actually look at making use of a section of Rainbow Park for something that had been suggested for Lakeshore Park, correct?
Yes, exactly it, Mark. I think that's it. And I think probably the reason why it wasn't ever considered is because they're 2 separate parks.
Yeah.
Even though they're totally across the street from each other, the right hand doesn't often know what the left hand, and I thought it would be a considerable cost savings besides, I would think, because the area that they're putting it in right now does have a lot of berms besides. A creek runs through it. There's raised and lowered topography that would have to be flattened out. And the other side, and on the Rainbow Park side, it's flat, lit, and part of it's already paved.
The only other question I have about that is there is a Rainbow Park plan to redo those pickleball courts. And, and that plan has been there for, I don't know how many years, but there's never any money to do it.
Yeah.
And I know, and I guess I have a little bit different idea than Rob too, because you could almost leave those pickleball courts and it's a very low area. It's very wet because I was out there, the fellows were putting the electricity in for the scoreboard because it's so wet there, they can't do it any other time. So I'm thinking, they should fill it in, put a parking lot there. The other spot is that corner of Veterans and Pinoqua. the water
That's
side.
where we said it first
Yeah.
there, yeah.
And all the trees are gone there. There was a Rainbow Park sign there at one time, but there are no trees there. There's nothing there.
Okay, so
I mean,
basically what,
Rainbow Park has some good areas.
so what our request is, though, is that they slow down on the shoreland, Lakeshore.
Lakeshore.
Park,
Yeah, yeah.
just long enough to take a look at this and see if there's a way to save the trees for the nature area to save the bird feeding grounds. And I just talked to the mayor about this a few days ago, and she told me to bring it to this board for a recommendation to the council. So that's what we're doing here, but I have not passed on your letter yet, Rob, to
Okay.
the Parks Department or anything. So now we will, it'll become part of our record, and we'll pass that on so that they'll see why and some of the other references, some of the people that you talked to and explained about the different kinds of birds and why they were there and why they needed that spot. So we'll use all that as documentation for this recommendation.
Thank you so very much. We
Yeah.
really appreciate
Well,
everybody helping out.
thank you. I
And everything
mean,
that you
you-
did, kiddo, appreciate it a lot.
Well, you literally live on the edge of this, so you do have the opportunity to see all
We do
this.
watch
And I know you've been
yeah.
very involved in watching the whole park plan unfold, as I would be too if I lived next door, believe me.
We've been very active when they first announced that they were going to be, doing some selling of the park, closing the golf course and everything. I'm not a golfer. Aaron grew up with a golf family, but, my grandchildren, my children don't play golf. I was concerned about the parks. And that's why our campaign that we did together, including, thousands of signatures and everything, was called Save Oshkosh Parks. And we wanted to make sure it was going to be. And so far, we're pretty pleased with what's going on out there right now.
There's a
That-
lot of wildlife out there
Yeah.
too that use those trees. So
Yeah, and the walkway that they've already started, if anybody hasn't seen that new walkway yet, at the end of Pinoqua that runs to the 41 bridge, that's beautiful. It's going to be very nice, very well done there, kind of
Yeah.
rolling along the hills and that kind of thing. It's going to be, so the addition for a lot of people in the city to use a good-sized park there, it's going to be very nice.
I neglected to ask you two to introduce yourself and tell us where you live when you came up. Will you do
Oh.
that, please?
Go ahead, dear.
Karen Hartley, and I'm at 1711 Pinoqua Street.
And Rob Hartley, I live right with her for 47 years.
Okay, well, thank you very much for bringing this to our attention, and we'll see where we can take it from here.
Thank you so much for
We
your time. We really
appreciate
appreciate it.
Yeah.
Anything else we can do, just let us know.
Yeah, we would appreciate
I will, I've
We
got
are
your number.
retired, and the only thing takes care of us is our grandchildren and a few other obligations.
Okay, thank you so much.
Thank you. Good night.
Good night. So what we want to do with that now is just pass this on and make it a recommendation from us to the council, right? That the whole, or I don't know if it's the council, but it needs to be
Sure.
looked at before those trees get taken down.
Yeah, and so we would take it through staff, I obviously take it through our supervisors, and then we'd get it to park staff. And, we can do it as a recommendation to the advisory parks board and the council if you want,
I do. I would like it to go to both at once
Sure.
if it could, just because of timeliness. I'm concerned that I don't know what the time frame for different things in the park are, but my concern is that before we have a chance to present this with the reasoning behind it, and I have also talked to the president of the Audubon Society and the Birdfest folks, which are sort of one and the same, actually. And so they are also aware of this. So there would be other people willing to weigh in on this if there's technical knowledge needed or anything. But I imagine we have that capability within the city anyway. So, okay.
So then we just have to have because I think we have that as an action.
We do
item.
have that as an action item, yes. Would somebody like to make a motion that we make a recommendation to, well, I'll let somebody else word it. Anyone who want to go for it?
So recommended or move or
Make a motion to.
yes, make a motion to recommend this because eagles are cool and we should protect them.
You got that down, just like that?
More or less. I don't know.
Is there a second?
Second.
Okay. All in favor? Aye. Thank you.
I just have a
And-
quick question about the park build there. Is that gonna be a walkway between the river and the actual building?
Yes, it's part of the Riverwalk. It's an extension of it, and it actually connects to the path that goes over the 41 bridge, and it also connects then all the way to
Did they
downtown.
decide yay or nay about like a shoreline restoration for like a natural shoreline for protection of runoff?
That was certainly brought up several times. Okay, moving on. Any other discussion on that? Okay. Environmental Leadership Award. We can give an update on that now, I guess. Do you want me to do that, or do you want to?
Well, we are finalizing the award. We did have a nominee for the 2020 awards. It's the second time we will be giving this award out. The award is due to be presented next week at State of the City, so on March 9th, Monday. I believe it will be before the city manager's address. That's when the award will be presented, so we're just finalizing all of that, getting all the logistics done, getting it coordinated and wrapped up.
And for anyone who isn't aware about State of the City, it's next Monday night at the Convention Center. It starts at 6 o'clock.
I believe so, yeah.
And it's, if you've never been, it's amazing because many of the city departments and boards and commissions set up booths, and you can learn a lot about what the city does. And I know the first time I went, I'm just like, wow, things I'd never really thought about. It's like they get done, but how did that happen? And now you can go and you can meet some of the people that make it all happen and see how they make it happen, and it's kind of fascinating. And then there's also usually Oshkosh Media does a fantastic program, and then the mayor gives some awards, and the city manager talks, and it's just kind of a fun night. Oh, and there's usually some refreshments. I'm just saying. Okay. Next up is the UW Oshkosh Senior Seminar Projects, student projects. We have those so we can access them.
Yep, they are online.
And I know somebody's working on some of them. I don't know that you've had a chance to do anything with it.
Not a lot, no. So I'm working on like the plastic pledge one. So no, I haven't gotten very far. Still trying to read through all of it and then gather all the information from foreign print about the sticker itself. So
Okay.
progress, but not a lot of progress.
Plus, your working buddy on that has been ill for the last 5 weeks or something, so. Yeah, a lot of that going around, which is why we're a little slim around the table here tonight, but. Okay, which is also why, oh wait, we're not there yet. Electronic vehicle project. Eric and Pat have both been working on this, I think. I got some feedback from you guys.
Are the senior seminar things posted now then on
They are,
our
yep.
website?
Oh,
They
yes,
are on
I'm
the
sorry.
site.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yes,
Yeah, so you can go in and read all of them. It'll be about a gazillion pages
that's correct.
of awesome stuff. That's the best part about working with the students. They do such a fantastic job of giving us info, lots of info.
Well, the electric vehicle project, there was the car inventory or the vehicle inventory that was posted as a attachment, right? So do you want to talk about that first? And then the inventory had of the electric charging
I thought we were talking
stations.
about the electric charging station inventory.
Well, there's both those things. So
Oh.
we talk about both those things or just one of them?
You can talk about anything about electric vehicles you would like, and I think charging stations
Okay.
are part of it.
So now, I know, I'm not, you did some calling and I did some calling, and I'm not sure if you had my most recent one. I wasn't sure, and I should have probably emailed you back, but, so, and this was not an
This is the
attachment.
same one I called off of.
Okay,
calls off.
okay, and I had called them too. Actually, we both called.
I think.
Good, they know we're interested.
I don't think Bergerson was gonna let me buy a car from them again. I've called them so much, so.
Oh, okay, is there enough? I don't know how many we need.
Anybody else have one?
I got one.
Okay, so
Robert,
sorry,
I
the
think we're
print's
good.
kind of tiny, but I got it all on one page. So, and I don't know how much people know about the electric chargers in general. I'm not sure, so people are aware of that there's 3 different levels, and one is 120 volt and charges fairly slowly, I guess on average about 4 miles per hour charging. And that's what the Kwik Trips have, so they're not terribly useful, I suppose, if somebody was working at Kwik Trip and was working an 8-hour shift, that could give them 30 miles or whatever. Depends on their car and the time of year, how much it's actually going to charge. Level 2 charges are usually 240 volt. You can get up to 25 miles per hour charging. I think that's what most people who buy an electric car, they get installed in their house. My experience is they're not, if you're buying a new car anyway, it doesn't add that much to the cost of your new car. I think the dealer sold us one for $600, and then we had to pay an electrician to install it. So it's not thousands and thousands of dollars to have that. Now, if you're doing one in a public place, it probably costs more than if you're doing it at your house, I'm assuming, And those, I think, would be useful, say, at a motel or where somebody was stopping and staying overnight in Oshkosh, or again, for a workplace, if somebody drove their car to work and could plug it in to a level 2, And then the level 3 are the very fast chargers up to 100 miles per hour. So I suppose if somebody stopped for lunch and had it being charged up while they were eating at a restaurant or something. I think in terms of the life of the battery, you don't want to do fast charging a lot. I think it shortens the life of your battery. So you'd probably only do it if you were on a long trip, and you wouldn't want to be doing it every day, I don't think. I think it's hard on the batteries, and it shortens the life of the batteries, is my understanding. So you probably wouldn't want to be driving to work every day and plugging into a level 3, I don't think. And I could be wrong about that, but that's my understanding. So most people would probably, prefer a level 2 as long as you could do it overnight or over the day, So there really aren't a lot of charging stations in the area in Oshkosh. There's probably more in other towns. Festival Food is the only one that has a level 3, and that's a Tesla charger. The Hickory Oaks Campground, I think what they have there is just a 250 volt outlet that they use for people who pull up their RVs, and apparently somebody with a Tesla stopped there one day.
Yeah,
and
that's
so
what
it ended up
sounded
on like a plug share or
There was only one difference I found when I called. Did you get a straight answer from the Berkshire GM or Nissan about what they had? Because the GM place said, I talked to a manager there, so they seemed a little like, who are you? Why are you calling?
Well, you might have been the second person to call. They may have been wondering why we were calling, because I thought
They said they have the one station that's open to the public, and it was like a regular 110.
No, I think it's a 240 volt. They said it was a 110 volt?
Yep, and they said it wasn't necessarily open to the public.
Yeah, well, you may have been like the second phone call, and maybe they were getting nervous about.
Oh, okay. I thought there'd be a fleet of cars showing up. That's possible.
Yeah, yeah.
'Cause they both said that.
I probably started my conversation by saying I bought a car from you.
JP1. Well, that's what they said. It was more for like customer use. Or people,
Right,
and
yeah.
They said they wouldn't obviously leave you hanging if you showed up.
Right, yeah. The
but-
GM
It wasn't like
place
just
kind of
pull up
said,
and-
yeah, we'd let people use it. The Nissan people, I think they had people kind of abusing it, walking
That's
through.
why that's probably why I had to make 2 or 3 phone
Right,
calls.
yeah, and
answer.
it got to where they didn't want people using it unless they were open for business. The Nissan people seemed a little more reluctant about it,
Yeah.
know.
They're there, just not.
Yeah, they
talking about
said
the
then they'd
Tesla
want
station.
people to ask,
Yeah.
not just come and use it, yeah. The GM one, they said it was 120 volt.
Yeah, they said it was.
But I don't think
the first
that's
time I
how it
talked to
showed
this guy-
up on PlugShare.
And they had 2. One was the internal one for the garage. They said, but they
Oh,
have,
that could be, yeah.
then they
Okay.
have the 110 outside.
Pat, you had referenced PlugShare on the sheet here. Is
Yep.
that an app?
Yep, or a
Okay.
website,
Okay, and that's
Yeah,
something.
you can do it as a website or a
So
phone
as an
app.
electric car owner, you would download that and just know where you could charge when you're in different places?
Yeah.
Okay.
Right, yeah.
There-
And
I know
the
Tesla has an
AFTC is
app
a
too.
government website, and they show slightly different stuff. PlugShare may be where just people, if they stop and use one, they can enter it in and comment on how good it was, and,
So
Um,
it's,
I'll check and see what PlugShare says about the Bergstrom one, but, I'm sure both dealers don't want people lining up to use their,
Yeah, they said
because
it was more
they
for
don't,
folks
they're
that
not
kind of showed
charged.
up or looking for cars.
Right, they're not
and-
charging for it, when we bought the car from Bergstrom GM, we bought a Chevy Bolt, they kind of said, yeah, if you ever want to use it, come and use it, but,
But it wouldn't make sense to drive there to use it because we got one at home.
For our purposes,
You know,
though,
but-
what this shows us is that there aren't really very many
No.
places available unless you have it in your own garage.
Right.
And
UW
so that
Oshkosh probably
shows
has
that-
the most.
The municipality of Oshkosh has an opportunity here to
Right.
invest in some infrastructure for charging stations
Right.
before they become popular so that it will help drive the electric car.
Right. And I would think it would be for people traveling, and stopping in Oshkosh is the kind of people who'd be
Well, if
looking
we're going to
for-
be the event city, we maybe need some place to
Right.
charge those cars.
And it looks like, there was that public hearing last week about the electric vehicle charging station grant program because of the Volkswagen mitigation program, but there may be an opportunity for grants to
Right.
support this, yeah.
And now that they've been doing their listening sessions, we may be able to get some of that information from the state.
Right, yeah. So I think it's probably worth looking into that. And I suppose it'd be cheaper to get a charging station. Well, it depends what kind of charging station you get. I guess the level 3 are pretty pricey, but
Hey, if you're buying a Tesla, you can afford the level 3.
I mean for the city to install, in terms of
Oh,
the city
oh,
installing.
that.
In terms of the city installing them. Or in terms of a business, if we supported, motels, putting them in their lots and making them available to the public in addition to their customers. When I called the Super 8 motel, they're like, no, it's only for guests. They don't want, but
That's
maybe
what
if
most
they
of
were
them were,
getting
yeah.
financial support to put it in, they could handle making it open to the public in general, or restaurants by the highway,
Like even the Kwik Trip, I stopped and talked to a couple of them, and they're like, "Well, are you buying something?" Or
Yeah, well, the 15 miniature and the Kwik Trip isn't
It's
going
not
to
gonna
get
get
you
you a
very
whole
far.
lot.
Yeah,
That'll get you a whole mile.
yeah, it isn't going to get you very far. I would think when I called them, they said it was free and open to the public. Maybe you called them after I called them, and they started getting nervous about how many people are going to be coming here. Did you tell?
At least here we have some information that we can use for a recommendation for municipal
Right.
infrastructure, which is what we really
and
need.
whether it's something the city encourages businesses to do or the city does itself,
Exactly,
But,
and how we help.
it's even with a level 3, it's the kind of thing where it's not as quick as using a gas station. So you'd probably want to eat lunch or go grocery shopping, or you'd be doing something while you're charging up. You wouldn't.
Or like you said, people are passing through, and so restaurants probably make a
Right,
lot of sense.
restaurants, right.
Anything along the 41 corridor makes a lot of sense.
Right, restaurants. So they come and they stop, they eat lunch.
I think the Outlet Mall would be a perfect place for a lot of them.
Sure,
EAA.
sure.
Or EAA, yeah.
Into
Sure.
the museum.
Sure, sure.
Yep.
Someplace where people would be for a little while, and, yeah.
Does anybody else have any thoughts on this you'd like to share?
I just have feedback that Kwik Trip is spelled incorrectly.
It's got a K in the beginning.
It sure does.
Oh, sorry.
you.
That's
Okay, well,
okay.
we can fix
Just for the
that.
sake of accuracy.
We can
Can't
fix
help
that.
myself.
Well, then I'll also mention that the level 1 on the bottom says 120 and the voltage at the Kwik Trip says 125.
Well, that's,
I don't know.
Yeah.
yeah,
Matters.
that's what the plug share said. I don't think that's a typo. I think I took
Okay.
it off of the plug
Okay.
share. But I can check, but I think it's in that general range. I mean, it's kind of like at the campground that they have a 250 volt, but normally you think of a level 2 as
40?
being 240, but it's in
Okay.
that range.
You were wondering the same thing?
Yeah, actually.
Yeah, I mean, I can
I'm like,
check.
does it
I don't
matter?
think,
I
I
don't
don't think it was a
never know what it
typo.
does.
I mean, it's kind of like you get a brochure describing each of these different
Okay.
levels, but then when you go and look at plug share as to what they actually are, the plug share information may be different. I think it's what's close to that,
So the levels are actually ranges. They're not dead set specific.
It depends on who you talk to. I mean,
Okay,
I
good to know.
I can.
Take a
brought my-
voltmeter around
Robert,
if
you
want
have
speak
something
on
to
it.
add?
Well, it's just interesting, like
Yeah,
for the sake of consistency, it is.
and
The
even
110 or
the,
Something to
120
point
outlet,
out.
I mean, yeah.
Right.
yeah, and even the,
If you were a first time.
Okay,
No,
Robert
electric
has something
vehicle.
to
Yeah.
share, I
agree,
think.
you'd wanna know.
As a former electrician,
Yes.
it's,
Tell me
your
more.
range is more like 110 to 130.
Oh.
It's a plus or minus 10 volt
Okay.
thing. If you put a meter on the wall in this building, you'll see it go up and down during the course of a day.
Sure, that makes more
So
sense.
it's a reference,
Sure.
not an
Yeah,
absolute.
and I don't think I
Thank you.
mistyped all those numbers. I think it was, I
Very good.
took off what it said on PlugShare.
curious.
Or and the other site is the government website, so whatever it reported there, I,
So would you two be interested in following up with the state then to see what kind of grant, how that grant funding is going to be broken down?
did you
Who could apply
go to
for it?
that meeting or not?
I was not able to go either. What Pat's referring to is there was a listening session in Green Bay that we found out the day ahead of time, and unfortunately, that was too short a turnaround to plan for it. But it was a listening session by the state because Governor Evers has said that the money that the state got from the Volkswagen settlement for the diesel engine thing will be going into electric car chargers across the state to provide funding for that, which is exactly where it should be going. I'm very thrilled to see that. It made sense. It's a related function. So at some point, there will be some grant funding from the state, we assume. And I don't know if we want to just watch for that, if we want to touch base with somebody at the state, or maybe talk to our representative and see. Gordon may be able to keep us updated on that.
Yeah. The people who ran that listening session, it was Jane McCurry from Renew, right? That's how I remember seeing it.
Okay, I'm sorry,
I
I don't
don't-
remember, but,
So I don't know if
So do you want to
if she would know.
so do you want to follow up with that, Pat?
Yeah,
Okay.
and I suppose, yeah, I could email Gordon Hintz's office and see what they know about what's happening.
Okay, great. Anybody else have any input on this? Okay, and we have the city's vehicle inventory that you gave us this last month, didn't you? Or has it
Yeah.
been updated since then?
Yep, no, I think it's the same. We just
Okay.
haven't had a chance to follow up. We've been prioritizing, getting the plan update done and the Environmental Leadership Award, so.
Yeah, this was pretty awesome anyway. Did you have thoughts on this,
I've
Eric?
thumbed through it a little bit. There is some areas, no necessarily large fleet of vehicles that we could replace at any given time, but there are certain inroads, like I see a lot of Ford Fusions being used.
Mm-hmm.
But there's like at least 4 or 5 of those.
How often do they replace cars, or is it just on how many miles?
Well,
on
that's the
car?
next step. How often do you replace cars? What's the life expectancy, and what's the city willing to pay? Is the person in that position willing to drive this car?
Oh.
All
Oh,
sorts of
if
things
they
that
want to
involve-
drive an electric
Yeah.
car?
And it's a fire department.
If you maybe give them a chance to drive one, they might like it.
Right. The largest fleet of like single vehicles are obviously the police department. And they do have options out for SUVs that have come out this year for hybrid police vehicles that are being mass produced by, it was Chevy and Ford are both making a version. So, but that would also bring up a lot of sticking points, I believe, with the city.
Well, we'd
As far
have
as
to
replacement-
identify what they were and see what the answers to them were. We don't know.
Right, and how far
We're still
out are we from
information
actually
gathering.
replacing the fleet? Do they replace the fleet all at once, or I know there's a large push to go more towards the sort of a mobile command unit SUV. I know a lot of them drive that now, as opposed to the actual squad cars.
Mm-hmm.
It depends if they want to move towards that, or if they want to move towards the traditional squad car type.
Or if there's something that's being developed that isn't there yet. And for anybody who's interested in following just electric cars in general, there's a fantastic newsletter that comes into your inbox every day. It's called Green Car Reports, and it's fantastic. It gives you updates on where things are now, but also on what's coming out in the next, 2 to 5 years, I suppose. There's a lot of reporting on stuff that maybe won't ever happen, but it's where I first saw the Tesla Cybertruck, which of course then I immediately needed. I'm kidding, I do not need a Cybertruck. But, Lego's making one though, or what's that little Power Wheels, or one of those toy companies is making one for us now too, so. But that's another thing that by maybe you want to follow that and see what recommendations we might be wanting to make. Because that's all we're doing is making.
There are definite inroads. It's like there are fleet vehicles that are for more administrative purposes.
Mm-hmm.
like for the police department and for the fire department and for a few other departments that are more administrative vehicles as opposed to actual like duty vehicles. I think those would probably be the easiest inroad to start with, either hybrid or electric.
You don't want to start with fire trucks?
Go big or go home.
I would
But- So
love that.
the smaller cars, and it's the smaller kind of
Right.
cars that an administrator drives around.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. And there's like 6 or 7 of those I noticed right off the bat.
Right.
As
And those
opposed
are
to-
probably more affordable in terms of the cost and stuff.
That would probably be the easiest inroad and most
Yeah.
available to start the whole process before we go, buy
Full blown.
30 electric SUVs and rig them up for.
Right, because they're gonna be
Police
less,
fire.
they're gonna be less expensive vehicles, so you're risking less in case somebody decides they don't like it.
But this all
Exactly.
goes back to infrastructure too, so if we make recommendations on vehicles, we have to also have the recommendation for the infrastructure. Because if it's gonna be a municipal vehicle, it needs to have a
You need to
municipal
charge
charger.
it here, right.
Which also-
Which means that when we're building these new parking lots and buildings and stuff, we wanna make sure the infrastructure's there, like it's not in City Hall, you know? I'm just saying, or the new parking lots. So, long-term, right? City, always long-term.
Well, if this is my 40-hour-a-week job, I could probably have it done next month. But
I mean, my
Brandon,
personal
yes.
opinion would be to maybe, if it's possible, determine, I'm sure down at streets or something, they keep track of mileage. And you figure out which vehicles go through the most amount of mileage each year. Those would be the vehicles that
Oh,
you
yeah.
want to switch out first.
If possible.
Sure,
If
that
possible.
makes sense.
they'll
That
come.
would be
They'll
the-
come to the end of their life cycle the soonest too.
Correct. So, whichever way you go, I don't know if it's, a full fleet of them or whatever, but I think that the ones that are driving the most should be the ones that are using.
That would come down. That would come down to squad cars. I mean, just for pure gas usage, it would be squad cars. I mean, they park at the hospital. We had guys there today that were sitting in the ER for 5 hours, and their squads are outside running for 5 solid hours.
Crazy.
That's just how they
Their
work.
cars were running?
Yep.
Why do
Yes,
do
that's what
that?
they do.
Because they're squad cars.
And you shut them down, the battery dies.
What?
There's a lot of drain on those vehicles' batteries.
Computer on the inside.
Yeah, there's an unbelievable amount of electronics inside those vehicles.
Oh, so what you really want is a charging station at the hospital, so when they come to the hospital or wherever they go, they
That's
can
a
plug their car in.
whole nother ball of wax, trust me.
There you go, though.
I've only been
See,
working on that for the past
infrastructure.
decade. But that's something that the new
do
command
they-
vehicles are coming out with, hybrid command vehicles. They're a hybrid, not a full electric. And they just have a monitor on them where they shut down, the battery's monitored.
Turns on.
Yep, turns on, kicks on, charge the battery, back up, and
Let's back out.
they have a full range of numbers about how much is saved on average for all that. So I think the easiest inroad would be, though, the fleet vehicles that are more administrative, though. That would be,
We got a
they
fully,
have multiple options available right now as opposed to the 1 or 2 that would be
Right.
considered for, duty.
well, and if you can go with fully electric, your maintenance cost on the vehicle is gonna be less
Right.
than a hybrid, right? Because you don't have that gas engine to maintain, you don't have to change oil, right? Or do other engine maintenance, right? You're just on the electric motor.
No
Yeah,
more
that's when you
spark
factor
plugs.
into the overall cost of the life of
And
the
the
vehicle.
cost of electricity to go a mile.
So what we
plus the
really
cost of
need from
buying gas.
you is going to be an overall recommendation, right? You could break it out into, these are places where infrastructure should be included for electric charging stations, and this is a way to pay for them maybe with the grants, but
I'd
also,
have to go site by site for each of the administrative vehicles then.
That's fine. It's however you want to do it. It's your
right,
recommendation.
but we'll need the 2 parts, so,
Okay.
yeah. But yes, it's your recommendation, and it's, it just needs, when you're ready to, I mean, we can help you write it up, right? Notice who I look at. We can help. Actually, we could help, yeah, but
Are any of those fleet cars kept inside, or they're always parked outside?
That's not a factor. That's part of where do we go first? Where are they? I don't know where any of these are housed or who's driving them or for how or.
A lot of like the yellow trucks that you see and stuff are just down in that garage over there on the south side of the river.
It's probably.
it's central
easier-
garage.
Central garage, yeah.
It's probably cheaper and easier to install a charger in a building than
Yeah.
in a parking lot, I'm assuming.
Yeah.
I'd say as far as like finding out where they're housed and stuff, maybe let us as staff work on that, you know, rather than like directly contact.
Me going knocking on doors.
Just because we don't want to broadside any departments, we want to
Yeah.
make sure that we clear it and go through the proper channels on our end, you know, just so we don't surprise anybody and so. But we can try to work on helping with that, and getting that information for you.
So as he gets questions, he should submit them to you and Brandon?
I would say so. If you could do that, Eric, that'd be great, yeah. Just to help us and then that'll help the other departments too, so.
And then if you don't hear back, you just remind them.
Yep.
Been a little bit busy month at school, so I apologize. I'm a little bit behind. So there are definite areas where they can at least begin to introduce these types of vehicles. So
They're
it's
probably
just-
going to want a pilot program anyway, but make the recommendations and we'll take it from
Yeah.
there. Yeah. Okay, next thing up is Menominee Shoreland Restoration, which again this month we will not be hearing an update on because Michelle is sick again. So it's just not been a good year, as I'm sure you're all aware. Okay, but we could talk about social media.
Sure could. So March posts are already to Stephen. The focus of this month's posts are on pollinators. This is kind of the month to start focusing on gardening, where we're going from there. Anyone who knows me knows that bees are my passion, so this was a very fun month for me. Didn't focus just on bees though, focused on butterflies, ants, wasps, flies, hummingbirds, and bats as well. So stay tuned for those. And then, of course, plugged the beekeeping ordinance that we help with as well at the end of the month. So posts are about pollinators. As always, if you have any post suggestions or anything you'd like to see, please send it to Stephen, who will send it to me, who will write it and send it back to Stephen. Thanks.
Because we're all about efficiency. It's so
Correct.
sustainable.
I love emails. It's fine.
And it's nice to have our email working again.
Yes, it is.
Okay. Any other input on that? Okay, moving on to agenda items for a future meeting. Wow, we got a couple of things already, didn't we? We've got our recommendation for the parks next month, right? And just in general, Eric and Pat, when you have something, just let me know or let Stephen or Brandon know so that we know to put it on the agenda. That'll keep us from always bugging you and saying, do you have something? I
Right,
want to
yeah.
give you time to work on it, but
Right.
don't want to be unreasonable here. We actually probably should have had that review goal sheet above that. It might
So
affect stuff.
possibly a speaker from MREA, depending on if they
Yes.
can send somebody.
Yep. And we also want that, the recommendation for the solar buy program so that we can get that started working through.
Okay.
So that would
okay.
be
So-
speaker and recommendation.
Right.
Okay, and yeah, if you find out if we can have a speaker, we'll then
Yep,
let us know so we get that on.
I will try to find out right away and let you know.
Okay. Does anybody else have anything for next month that we're aware of at this point? I do have a sustainability plan update, sort of, kinda. It will be going tomorrow night to the Plan Commission, and this is the first time that anybody other than us and the planning director has looked at it, so yeah, it's moving right along there, folks.
And if any of you want to come, please feel free. The meeting is in this room at 4 p.m. tomorrow.
Yeah, and if there are questions that the Plan Commission has, it may be something that you worked on, so if you're available, feel free to come hang out. I did notice we're the second thing on the agenda, so it's probably going to be at least 4:15 or something, right?
Probably.
But-
It should be hopefully not too long of a meeting. It's only 2 items, I think, so.
Yeah. Okay, and then was there anything else on the goal sheet that anybody had worked on that we missed or that you want to put on for next month?
We always put the student group projects on there, but if you want to make the plastic pledge maybe like its own little
Little bit
bulletin, I can
more.
be a little more prepared, for next month.
Okay, you got that?
More of an update.
Plastic pledge.
Sure.
And then it says for future meetings, doesn't necessarily mean it has to be next month. For the May meeting, I'd like to put the fossil fuel divestment on there. And please help me remember. Okay, I think that's about it. Have you applied for, I'm thinking this is March. Okay, we probably don't have the information yet to apply for the farmer's market,
No,
right?
we don't. That'll probably be on for hopefully next month, but yeah, we don't have that yet.
Well, you're just going to go ahead and apply for it and then tell us, right? Or do you want to try to find dates that people are available when you're applying for it?
Usually it's been good if we can run dates by people just to see if somebody's able or interested to staff for a particular Saturday.
It would probably be nice to have somebody there if we were going to do it.
Yeah.
Okay. So do you want to put that down just for finding out when?
Sure.
Calendar dates or something like that? Okay. Anybody else have anything to add this evening? Okay, the other things that people were working on, they aren't here, so we'll save everything else for next month. Would anybody like to make a motion to adjourn?
I move we adjourn.
Seconded.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
I've never had anybody say nay to that one. Thank you.